We're about ready to start.
Winterized tractors. I just have a hired hand that maintains everything. It's just it's a product, but it's beautiful.
It is pretty
It
nice.
is a beautiful place. I've never been there until they bought it. It's true. Is that there much?
Yeah. I used to live in Portland. And then, we still go back. We've gone back every other year to do a trip up the coast with my kids.
My wife, her dad.
Hey, Julie, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Washington.
Julie, can you hear?
I can hear you.
She can hear me.
Can you hear me?
We can't hear you.
My favorite place on the planet is on the Oregon coast. Cannon Beach.
Yeah.
That's my happy place.
Medford's cool because you get that transition from Cascades into kind of the desert, high desert.
It's pretty neat.
So we're just working out some technical details, so be patient with us.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Nope.
I make you uncomfortable if I don't wear a mask.
Pretty much.
Kim, have her leave the meeting and then come back in, and maybe you'd like she needs to click on use computer audio. So have her exit and then re-enter.
The nursing homes works in.
Oh, did she just leave? Okay.
Like my daughter. And that's what all of them are saying. All your fault. I know.
I think it's my fault.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Been damaged.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Guess what?
Yep.
I've heard that my whole life. Never sign your name.
Yeah, when I got here, Kim was like, you stop here, you stop here. I'm like, no, no, no.
You don't get blamed.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
No, we can't.
Can you hear me now?
He's meeting to run.
Can you guys hear me at all?
Oh, yeah. Turn it up.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes, no, maybe so.
So Julie, we can hear you a little bit. We're trying to turn up the volume on our end.
Okay.
We're up all the way.
You know, she may have to turn her volume up. I do what I do.
My volume's all the way up,
Is it all the way up?
all the way up,
Julie, is your volume all the way up?
all the way, all the way. Is that any better?
Video and call in on her phone it gives a phone number on that.
I think she can hear you.
Yeah, just call in on my phone.
Yeah, call in on your phone and we'll see if the sound's better on that.
Okay.
For the audio, then she can
So this is the first time we've met in person in over a year, so we're a little rusty on how to get things started there, so.
And to the benefit, this stuff all happens.
Right, yeah.
City council had the same issue Tuesday.
Well, see, now that's what's embarrassing because they've had more time to work.
No.
Oh, sorry, Blair's here.
System failure.
Well, it wasn't here.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Alright. Might as well put another one over there though.
Yep.
That would have been a good thing.
I'll be that.
Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just please enter the meeting passcode followed by pound. You are in the meeting now. There are 2 participants in the meeting. You have been added to the waiting room. You cannot talk or listen until the host admits you to the meeting.
Hey, Julie, now mute your computer. There you go. Talk, see if we can hear you now.
Can you guys hear me?
Julie, turn your volume on your computer all the way down.
Getting someone in to see me come to team practice.
The computer volume, yeah.
Are you still getting feedback, Julie? We can go with 3, can't we?
She can provide comments in the chat if need be.
So Julie, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. I think we'll ask you just to use the chat feature if you have a question, unless things work out. And does that work for you, Julie? And Kim, will you monitor that chat?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for your patience. We didn't get it worked out, but we've got her connected and at least communicating kind of the old-fashioned way. But why don't we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, we'll now open the meeting for public comment. If you are here specifically for one of the items where we're having a public hearing, we ask that you wait for that. But if you have anything general that you would like to share with the commission, now's the time. Please be aware that you may speak for 3 minutes or less, and we ask that you state your name and your address. Direct your comments to the entire commission, and note that we will not be responding during this time. So we are now open for public comment. Go ahead and to the microphone over here.
Okay. So my name is Stacy Eddings. I live at 2645 East, 7800 South. And this is a reference to the lofts offsite detention. We would like to address the offsite detention phase 1 that is depicted on the page 52 C410. We have an issue with the note that states exist wood fence is to be relocated to property line where it overlaps. We believe that the fence located on our property based on the survey markers installed. However, by chance, if the fence is not found to be located on our property, we would like to try and work out a solution to prevent us from having to relocate that fence. One solution we thought of was if Mr. Cook would entertain the idea of selling us a small section of that land, a section that is roughly 6 feet wide and 51 inches in length, and that would abut our small parcel to the south and the canals property to the north. By allowing us to purchase this small section of land, we wouldn't have to relocate our fence. And based off the drawings, it doesn't look like it would interfere with any construction of the detention pond, as the area looks to be just grass. On another note, due to the way the ground level is behind the fence and that it seems like the detention pond is going to be literally up to our property line in one spot, we would like to meet with either Mr. Cook or the contractors or engineers before excavation takes place to clarify some of our concerns. And thank you for the attention, and we look forward to hearing from Mr. Cook on this matter.
Okay, thank you.
Paul Sturm, 2527 Deer Run Drive. My comments are on the meeting packet. Let's take this thing back. Agenda item 5, packet page 26 of 223, public hearing and action on rezone request for Stevens exit located at northeast corner of 475 East and 6650 South by developer Randall Carter. As is noted in the South Weaver City Planner's staff review, in the executive summary, to quote, the City Council and Planning Commission have in the past requested that rezone applications come forward with a concept plan so that the city has some assurance of what type of projects are intended for their properties. Please note, packet page 16 of 223, agenda item number 4, demonstrates the proper procedure to request a property rezone, as was done for the Bryce Estates request that included a concept plan. I recommend against approval of this rezone request due to the developer not providing South Weaver City with concept drawings with their rezone request. The city has been hoodwinked by too many developers in the past to not require additional information as to their plans. Item number 2, agenda item number 6, packet page 29 of 223, final plats, site and improvement plans for the lofts at Deer Run located at approximately 7870 South, 2700 East by developer Joseph Cook of Deer Run Development. The reviews conducted by the city planner and the city engineer indicate the various items to be addressed during the December 20 Planning Commission meeting have been adequately addressed. The preliminary plats, site and improvement plans that were presented on December 20 also need to be included by reference in any motion or anything like that, because the final plats, site and improvement plans presented tonight are only a small subset of what was promised and agreed upon. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment at this time? Okay. So we're having trouble getting Julie up on the screen here. We can take some time to get her up, or I think we can just keep going. Is Julie still with us? Okay. So we can see Julie, you can't. Trust that she's here. She's waving. So I think we'll go ahead with the agenda. Oh, there she is. Okay, that's fine. As long as she can hear, I think that's the important thing. So, all right. So we'll move on to item number 3, approval of consent agenda. Planning Commission minutes from April 8th, 2021. Any questions or comments on those from the commission?
None for me. None.
Okay, if not, I'd look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda and the minutes from the 2021-04-08.
Okay, do we have a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll second.
Okay. We will have a roll call vote. All in favor, Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Or Commissioner Walton, I should say,
Not the
sorry.
first time.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Losi? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Aye. Oh, there it is. She was ahead of us. And I'm an aye as well, so.
It works.
Okay. I think we're all good. Also, I forgot to excuse Commissioner Davis. He was not able to join us in person or electronically. So my apologies for not excusing him earlier. All right, well, let's move on to item number 4. We have a public hearing and action on preliminary final plat improvement plans and rezone for Bryce Estates, a 2-lot subdivision located at approximately 370 East, 6725 South by developer Nate Reeve. Sherry, would you like to give us a little information on this before we
Yeah,
open up
of course.
for the public hearing?
We have received a request from Nate Reeve, acting with the consent of the property owner, to subdivide property located at 325 East, 6650 South. It includes approximately 1.5 acres. Presently, it's zoned to agriculture, and there's an existing home and a couple other small auxiliary buildings on the property. What they're requesting to do is to rezone the entire property to residential low moderate, and split the property into 2 lots for the purpose of building a single home on the second lot. The existing home will continue to front on 66 South. And if you happen to have the plat with you, it's lot 1, and the new lot, that's lot 2, is actually going to front on the 6725 South. The way that the property is configured, and that portion of the property is a 6725 is actually a cul-de-sac that was built with phase 1 of the Hidden Valley Meadows subdivision. As far as the evaluation of the request by myself as the city planner and by Brandon Jones as the city engineer, the rezone's consistent with the general plan. The general plan anticipates that property in the projected land use map, the general plan anticipates that property will be zoned residential low moderate. Lot 1 will continue to use existing utility services. Of course, lot 2 will be required to install utility services for that lot. There's no additional right-of-way dedication that needs to happen with lot 2. On 6650 South, there's right-of-way dedication that needs to happen that is reflected on the plat. And typically what happens when someone subdivides property and there's required right-of-way dedication is typically in a larger scale subdivision. At the time the property is developed, the developer, excuse me, the developer will go in and construct those right-of-way improvements. However, in a situation like this one where it's not anticipated that the right-of-way improvements will happen for years down the road, there's the option available to people of fronting the city the money at the time the subdivision, the division of the property happens, so that the city has the money in hand. So we're not getting a piecemeal road. And it provides for a better overall project at the point the city is ready to construct the improvements on that road. And so that necessary right-of-way dedication has been provided. The proposed size of the lots and the proposed access to the lots is compliant with the requirements for residential low moderate. I know there's been questions in the past about doing preliminary and final together. And just to clarify again, it just means that they do all of the requirements of preliminary and all of the requirements of final in one plat. There's no requirement that's skipped. There's nothing that they're not required to do when those small subdivisions are allowed to do preliminary and final in one. There's no requirement that they're exempt from. So in all material elements related to the general plan, the city's current zoning, the engineering design and standards, in all of those respects, it meets all the requirements that would be asked of this type of project.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. So we will go ahead. Well, I'll look for a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the public hearing is now open. So if you have any questions or comments about this, please come up to the stand and again, state your name and address. And
My name's Timothy Berry. I live at 331 East, 6725. It's right next to the lot. As I kind of look at this and look at the plans on this, I am a general contractor and a roofing contractor. I've built several houses throughout my career. I'm 31 years into the construction industry. I understand this a lot. My first issue is opening up the cul-de-sac and bringing another house in there. We've had an issue. We met with the city manager and the city attorney and the mayor over our asphalt out there. We've got great asphalt that Nielsen Homes was required to add extra thick asphalt out there. My first concern is them cutting that open and running their utilities out of there. Where they're going to run their power from, there's only two spots, my yard and yard between Miller's and Josh's house. So they're going to have to cut through everybody's yard to run power and utilities and dig up that cul-de-sac and asphalt. This has been a huge issue with us. My other issue is that property, that strip of property is not owned by them. It's owned by Bruce Nielsen. And I'm wondering if the city plans to use eminent domain to acquire that property to let them put a driveway through that property in that grass strip. Eminent domain was originally used for government use or betterment of the city. And I don't see either of these issues with that driveway going through there. I would much rather see an easement come through from 6650. That's their family's house that's in front. They could put an easement through, run all their utilities and everything through that way and build the lot and leave the fence that Nielsen Homes was required to build on the property line in that area. And then lastly is the extra traffic. We have a lot of kids that play in that cul-de-sac. There's basketball, skateboarding, rollerblading, hockey, all sorts of stuff that happens in that. And we're going to add one more driveway into that access of that neighborhood. Do you have questions for me?
I don't. No. Thank you.
Thanks.
Nate Reeve, developer, sort of interesting to say developer, it's usually engineer, but
In fact, Mr. Reeve, before you start, is there anyone else who would like to comment on this specific item? Because we were going to give you a chance to discuss this, so. No one else? So I motion we close the public hearing on this item?
I'll make
Go
a
ahead.
motion to public, or close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Mr. Reeve, go ahead.
Well, good evening. It's exciting to be here for yet something else with the city. We love South Weaver. We've lived here for 19 years now, so we love the city. So when we originally designed the Nelson Homes subdivision, it was always intended that this piece of property be developed into a lot. At the time, I had no idea that I would be the person that would be trying to purchase that and develop that into a lot. The frontage is exactly, we designed it exactly 3 years ago for a lot. It's got 60 feet of frontage at the right of way, exactly what the RLM zone requires. It is unfortunate that the utilities were not stubbed in. I do completely agree with that. It's unfortunate that we do have to go out and cut open the road. We have worked with Brandon. The city also has standards for the rehabilitation of that asphalt and that cul-de-sac to connect those utilities for that one lot. So, and then the cul-de-sac, the two parcels, yes, there are two parcels that are in essence restricting this parcel access to the cul-de-sac. I have those under contract with Nelson Homes. Those will be purchased at the same time. The rest of the property is purchased from Seth Blair. And again, concerning traffic, it was originally designed for this. This is one single family home that we plan to occupy. And so we are anticipating very minimal traffic on a short cul-de-sac in South Weaver. Any other questions for me?
So members of the commission have any questions for Mr. Reeve?
No.
Julie? She's typing.
Was that a thumbs up or a finger?
It was a hang on a second.
Oh, it was a hang on. Okay.
Not the finger.
What does that say, Kim? I think that we're not going to the citizens' concerns. Is that what you're asking, Julie? Okay. That's what Julie's asking, if you have any response to the citizens' concern.
It was my understanding that I did address the three concerns. Is there anything specifically that Julie would like me to talk about further? Asphalt repair, it's already addressed inside the city submittal and approved by the city engineer. The cul-de-sac parcels, we already talked about the initial design. It's complying with the general plan. We're complying with the zone. We're complying with the setback, frontage requirements, lot requirements. Was there anything else? I can certainly address anything if there was something else.
You're returning the asphalt to the current thickness?
Yes,
I think you
certainly.
addressed that.
We will work with Brandon, with Mark Larson, with the inspection crew to make sure. Again, this is a little bit unique, is that we are acting as a developer, but yet we are just a homeowner. And so, yes, we don't want a substandard cul-de-sac either. And so, yes, we will do everything we can to repair the cul-de-sac.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Boray, can I say one thing
Please.
with that? Whenever someone does have to cut into a road like that, they're required to return it to the original condition prior to the cut. So whatever they take out, they have to put in they have to match the exact same thing so that there's not an issue with the standard of the road.
Okay.
Claire? I'll add to that as well. We have city standards for patching, which is what he'll be doing. And for a new road, they are more extensive than for older roads. And so he'll have to comply with that. So but that's already all addressed in the city standards.
Okay.
And that's what we already show on our plans, and we do concur with that.
Okay. Is it appropriate for me to have a citizen come up again, or?
That's your discretion as the chair. The public hearing is closed, but you have the ability to allow comment.
Go ahead.
No,
Good.
my concern is.
Or could you come up to the microphone?
Again, I'm not opposed to developing the lot. I want it developed properly. I would like to see an easement go the front way. Have you guys ever seen a patch put in properly? As we met with the city attorney and the city manager, their concerns about our asphalt was as they get cracks in there, water gets in there and freezes, it's going to cause issues. And that's why they wanted to slurry seal it and put rocks on top of our asphalt. That was our conversation. Now we're allowing them to cut the asphalt and patch it in, which is not going to be, it's going to leave a crack in there. I don't care what you do, you put a cut in there, there's going to allow water to get in there and freeze and expand those cracks. And we're going to have issues with the asphalt moving forward. And we have a very, very nice asphalt. Our neighborhood doesn't have slurry seal or rocks on it. We have lots of people ride scooters through there and their kids play, ride bikes and everything through that whole development. And that's my concern is I've never, ever in my 31 years of construction seen a patch that actually held up or looked proper or matched in.
Okay. Thank you. Blair, you look like or not Blair.
Me?
Yes. I can't see your name thing and I'm
Sorry.
used to seeing everybody's names
Brandon?
on Zoom.
That's okay. All I can say is that if you want me to, I can explain the patch on a newer road. What it requires is that you actually so they would saw cut, install the utilities, backfill, patch up to where their trench is, and then they have to come back in and mill where that patch is an additional 4 feet beyond those cut lines, and then with a 2-inch mill, and then overlay that with 2 inches so that you don't have a cut that goes all the way from the surface to the subgrade because the cuts are offset.
So Brandon, forgive me for not remembering your name.
That's okay.
So
I'm just hiding back here in the corner.
it's been a long year. So
You're fine. Does that answer the question? I mean, I would prefer that roads never get cut, but the city code allows for development to occur on existing roads. And the provision that addresses these newer roads is the city standard with the patch that I just explained. So we feel like that's as much as we can do to address the concern.
okay. Any other questions or comments from members of the commission?
Nope.
Okay, if not, I'd look for a motion.
So I can make the motion to recommend approval on preliminary and final plat, improvement plans and rezone for Bryce Estates, 2-lot subdivision.
I'll second that. Let's see, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Walton,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Losi. And I'm an aye as well. So, okay. That will go forward to the city council for approval. Next, moving on, we'll go to item number 5. Public hearing and action on rezone request for Stevens exit located at northeast corner of 475 East, 6650 South by developer Carter Randall. Sherry, would you
Yep.
introduce us to this?
I'm happy to do it. This parcel is located on the corner of 475 East and 6600 South in South Weber City. The applicant, with the consent of the property owner, has applied to rezone the property from its present zone of agriculture to commercial highway. They have not presented the city with a concept plan as to what they want to do with the project. My evaluation of the request is mixed. The concept that typically comes forward and that Mr. Sturm referenced in his public comment earlier, it's not strictly required by city code. The Planning Commission, City Council in the past have requested it, as I stated in my memo, to give the city some assurances of what kind of projects are coming forward to the city, because there have been situations in the past where the city has gotten the short end of the stick. I'm not speaking to anything specifically, I'm just speaking in general. That happens sometimes in cities. And so it's before the commission without a concept because it's not specifically required by code. So staff can't hold it back because for the lack of a concept. I just want to make that clear so that there's no misunderstanding about staff allowing something to go forward without it being complete. So like I said, my analysis of the request is mixed. The general plan does anticipate, and the future land use map in the general plan does anticipate that this property will be highway commercial. So to that extent, the request complies with what's anticipated in the general plan. However, because they haven't presented a concept, it's difficult for me as the planner to do a full analysis and evaluation. So the commission kind of has two options with this. Well, there's multiple options, but if the commission chooses to recommend against the project, the developer can go forward to the city council without a concept. They can choose to go to the city council with a negative recommendation from the commission. They can choose to go prepare a concept and bring it back to the planning commission. So there are options available to the commission that the developer and applicant can then choose to act on. So I hope you can understand why my analysis of it's a little bit mixed, because it does comply with the general plan, but they have not presented the city with a concept that in the past has been requested by the Planning Commission and City Council.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify, this is a legislative action, not an administrative action.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
It's a legislative recommendation.
Thank you. Yes.
I did put it up on the screen.
Okay.
I would encourage you to wait.
Yes.
To look at her question until after the public hearing.
Julie, we are going to open up the public hearing first. So I'd look for a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. I think Julie is an aye as well. I didn't see the sign. Okay, there we go. So the public hearing is now open. So if you have any comments or questions for this item, now's the time to approach the podium. Corinne.
Corinne Johnson, 8020 South, 2500 East. I'd like to make a comment that at this time that the Planning Commission hold off on recommending this and moving it forward to the City Council. I think it's important as a city that we take the time to review the zones that are being changed and in the process of being changed right now. Our Code Commission has worked very hard to ensure that the uses match our city, and this has been an ongoing process. And we did have a public hearing on the CH zone, which would give us some time. If this was approved, it would give us some time to go through that. But I recognize the Planning Commission meets once a month, and we want to be able to have public input and have a lot of discussion about this zone and these changes to the CH zone. And my worry is that we'll find ourselves in a time crunch, that the timing of being able to match up approving the changes in the CH zone and then meeting it with the approval of this zone change moving forward. We also put the developer in a difficult position because then he's waiting on our changes in that zone in order to move forward. So I think considering those issues that we're facing, that a wise, prudent action would be to go ahead and not move this forward at this time and take some time to allow the city to finish that zone, allow the developers to create a concept plan, and watch the process of what's going to be allowed in that zone over the process of the next 6 months, so that their concept plan can match the new uses, and that we can kind of move this all forward together with the new zone and the development plan, concept plan, and the zone change all together as a city. So that is just my comment on this in this public hearing. Thank you so much for your time and your service. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So my name is Nicole Morfin. I'm at 464 East, 6650 South. We are the house right across from that parcel, and we have the one-way strip in front of our house. We haven't lived in South Weber long, but changes have been happening very quickly, and this is one that we disagree with at this time. I agree with the other speakers on this parcel that we need a plan. I would like to know what is going in that field, how it will affect the future. And I have a hard time seeing any business, store, gas station, grocery store that will add value to South Weber that we can't get out of Riverdale. With the quick changes that have been talked about, and with plans not being in place and the city's kind of getting the short end of the stick, as was mentioned, I think this would be one of those situations. We kind of felt like that when they put in that one-way strip in front of our house with the island. It was something that started happening before we really understood what was happening. So we would like a pause on this one and a plan in place from the developers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this specific item? Okay, if not, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor to close the public hearing, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Let's see, Mr. Randall would like to tell us more about your request.
So the request that we're making to bring the zone to what is in the master plan of the city to highway commercial, so that we can identify the vested uses to go and actually get those users, as opposed to hoping that the city's okay with the users in order to give us the rezone. So we can't go get end users without knowing what uses will be allowed. And so we know that the city is working on modifying the code. We know that this had a hash line in it. It was originally meant to be part of a development overlay, to be a single development. It sounds like that's been modified or is being modified. So in order for us to, we're not asking you to change what you're doing in the code. We're just asking to know, we can't go get, I can't supply you a plan for users that are unknown, because uses are unknown. So we're trying to move the city along to get to those uses so that we can actually go find those end users, so that we could actually develop amongst those users. But we don't want to be put into the position where we're, every time we get a user, I have to walk back in here and ask for a rezone of a 2-acre parcel, of a 2-acre parcel, of a 4-acre parcel. And I mean, that's just a difficult process that we'd prefer to avoid if possible, knowing what the uses are. Then code.
We're gonna try and give everyone a headache during the meeting. Thank you, Blair.
Anything else before we open up for our discussion?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously been in front of the city several times on this particular property with multiple different concept plans. Trying to make things work, and because there's no defined uses in those plans, we've just sat here and gotten nowhere. So this is all we're trying to do, is to find some ground to put our feet under so that we can actually go find the uses that would fit inside the zone. And I think, as you know, running the property, that's the obligation, is to meet uses that would fit inside the zone that the city prescribes. And what those uses are is what we're trying to cement, so that we can actually spend our time finding uses that the city would like to, has approved inside the zone. And so we can't really do anything. I can't really produce a master plan. I can't really produce a concept plan, because that would be a whole lot of time spent to walk back in here. And if you didn't like that plan, I wouldn't get the rezone. So I'm kind of stuck. So that's all we're trying to get, is some clarity as to what those uses are.
Okay. Kim, I know Julie had a comment. Can you bring that up? So I'll just go ahead and read this, even though everyone can see it. Julie says, this has been a heavily discussed piece of land in our city, and CH zone is in the process of being discussed and worked out as to what will be permitted and what will be a conditional use. Without a concept plan in place, I don't feel we have enough of a picture from the developers with regards to their intent, and without that, I don't feel comfortable making a recommendation for approval at this time. Any other thoughts or comments from the commission?
I've got some. So I can certainly understand, Sherry, your concern about not being able to provide a full recommendation based upon the ambiguity of the zone itself. I think we had the discussion before you joined the city about what the crosshatched development plan and agreement meant. And I think it certainly has been left to a point where I feel like it's undefined and probably unfair for the developer, and really hard to determine for the city to decide what is allowed in that zone. I would like to note that on the general plan for the projected land use, that it does say development plan and agreement are required. I know it doesn't carry the same weight as code, but I just want to point that out as a note. But ultimately, being on that committee that was trying to decide what we wanted on these parcels, we wanted to see what could be done. We wanted to leverage the imagination, the creativity, market conditions that the developer is aware of, and see what could be proposed on that parcel, and not be so restrictive as to say, this is all going to be commercial highway and only commercial highway. We want to leverage the full potential of that parcel because of its proximity to Highway 84. So hearing the conversation, though, it sounds like we've created a redundancy loop that just doesn't get us anywhere. You've proposed things to the Planning Commission and the City Council in the past. It seems like we are getting in our own way a little bit here and trying to give you a good recommendation on what could be approved and rezoned. So I appreciate the fact that there's a little bit of a tough one to move forward on and provide recommendations for. My perspective is I think we do owe it not only to the developer, but the residents in the city to look into defining what is expected from the developer, what's expected for the city to provide in way of uses in this area. Maybe take this up as one of the high interest action items for the code update committee. see if we can't come together with a better expectation of what could be on this parcel. But those are some of my initial thoughts. I'd definitely like to hear from you guys as well.
I think we're looking at kind of a double-edged sword here. The city hasn't really defined what is going to be in a CH zone. We haven't adopted that yet. The developer needs to have that information before he can make a concept plan. So I'm looking at this from two different aspects. First of all, the city needs to get the zoning and what's allowed in place first. Then the developer can come back with his development concept plan, and then we can proceed from there. So really and truly, I'd like to see this be tabled until the zoning by the city has been completed, and that the city gets its act together and get the matrix adopted and the zoning adopted before we proceed on this.
So Brandon, we got a question from Julie. She says, can you tell us how many acres are currently zoned CH in the city and how many are zoned agricultural?
Give me 1 second.
Okay, so while you're looking for this lot, not the city, sorry, I inserted a word there that shouldn't have been there. So right now it's all agricultural.
No,
There's
there's a small piece of commercial.
Is there? Okay. So while you're looking that up,
So are you wanting to know how much is commercial and how much is ag on that piece?
she's nodding her head, yep.
Yeah.
So I agree with my fellow commissioners here. This is kind of an odd situation, but the thing is, there is a CH zone in the ordinance now that's defined. And we are in the process of changing that. And after this, we'll be having a public hearing to kind of talk about some of those changes. So it's not like there's no idea what it's going to be. I mean, it's out there for everybody to see kind of what we're working on. But I too am hesitant to do a rezone without a plan. I've seen too many cities been burned by that, and especially with such a large piece of property, to completely rezone that CH. I also wonder, if we did approve the rezone, or if we recommended approval for the rezone and the city council approved it, and there wasn't a plan for many years, how does that impact the property owner? I mean, does that, having that zone change, does that increase the value of the property, thus increase the taxes on that property right now when something isn't, really, there's no concept yet? And so I too am very hesitant to recommend approval of this without having at least some idea of what may go there. So especially when it's so close, I mean, across the street from residences. And I live close to that neighborhood, and it concerns me as well what goes in there. I would love to see what goes in there before anything is approved.
So that would bring us back to, and perhaps it should be tabled until you get identified uses. It's a large enough piece of property that to master plan the entire property based on what's going to be likely a multi-year development would be drawn, but it would be difficult to stick to that particular plan over time. So that's what brings me back to the zone to acquire the actual uses. The city should be comfortable with the uses that they prescribe to the zone, and then allow me to develop the property, I would assume. But that's the reason I need the rezone, so that I can go get the users. Which particular users I end up finding that are willing to particular property is an unknown. But right now I can't even, everybody I brought to it has been shot down. So I just need, I mean, that's the point of the zone. You have to be comfortable with what is in the highway commercial zone, and then I go find the uses that fit inside that zoning parameter. I don't think it's fair to the developer to have me come in one 2 acre piece at a time and have to come in for a rezone and plead my case for whatever that use might be. I just want you to be comfortable with your uses, and then I'll go find those users. Whatever that is. I mean, I'm not telling you what to put in your highway commercial zone. I'm just asking what that is. And if you were uncomfortable with the uses in your highway commercial zone being on that property, they shouldn't be in your uses. That's kind of how I would see it. And then I won't go find that use.
So Julie has a comment here. She just reemphasizing that we are in the process of determining that timing is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And we ask for some patience while we work through this. And I agree. I mean, the timing is bad timing. And, you know, we as a city have been burned in the past. And so we're working on that, and changing code is not easy. Taylor can comment on that more than any of us, just how difficult it's been. But again, for me, being a member of this commission, I hesitate to rezone something or recommend a rezone that we have no idea what's going to be in there. So,
You have any idea on the timeline of this? I mean, of the code changes?
I can speak to that a little bit. So what happens is once a city has provided formal public notice that that a ordinance or a project is under consideration, that a land use ordinance is under consideration, they have a limited number of days to complete that project. And Jamie can correct me when I'm wrong, but they have 180 days from the time that the project is first noticed that they can, for lack of a better term, put an applicant off whose application will be substantially affected by the change under consideration. So I believe that we calculated that the city has until the late September is 180 days from when it was first noticed. And if projects come in during that time that will be substantially affected, whether it's this project or any other project that's affected by land use and zoning, the city has the ability to continue those items and not make a decision on it until the ordinances that'll affect the project are in place.
So there's a little teeny tiny caveat with what Sherry just stated. And it's that where this property has two current zoning designations, one is agricultural and then the other is CH. What Sherry just described to you would apply to the CH portion of the property. And so the existing entitlement for the remainder of the property is an agricultural use, and uses consistent with the agricultural zone could be considered and applied. The application before you is a legislative request to change the zoning on the remainder portion of the property so that the entire parcel is CH. And you know, that of course is not a decision that's bound by the contours of the present code of whether you rezone that property from agricultural to CH. But if it were to be rezoned and then an application were to come forward to develop under that new CH zone, then you could hold off on making a decision on that application until such time as the city has an opportunity to complete its zoning ordinance, but not longer than 180 days from the time you begin that process.
Anything else you'd like to add, or?
So that was, I appreciate that. So just so for my simple notes here, about 180 days, end of September. Is that
it? I don't know the date when it began, but it's 180 from when that rezoning began. So I think we're already, what, 6 weeks or so into,
I think so.
into that process. Don't quote me on that exactly, but
that's when the city would have to adopt?
That's when the city will have to have completed its rezone process. So adopt the final zoning ordinance. the contours of that, as I understand it, is redefining the permitted and conditional uses in the CH zone.
We did ask that we try to do this by July.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
The city's trying to work at a quicker pace than that. 180 days is the time frame permitted under state law.
Just out of curiosity from the engineer, with regard, did you say there was 5 acres currently zoned highway commercial?
Yeah, it's about, well, 4.7 is what I have.
Is it clearly like identified on the map? It just
It's,
shows it a
it's
block.
not,
in the middle.
it's not tied down by a legal description per se, but it is defined by, I mean, it has boundaries on the map.
Would they be similar to those boundaries? I mean, that's.
Yeah. It's, I mean, you'd have to just bring it into a plan and, scale it and trace it, because it's not tied down any more directly than that.
But it's not just the 5 acres to the north, 5 acres. It is actually a
yeah,
defined 5 acres.
It is, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
4.7 to be closer. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So Brandon, just to clarify for Julie, 4.7 is currently CH. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
She's got another question.
So what was that? What was the total acreage for the agricultural?
I don't have that broken down because that the ag goes over the Rocky Mountain Power parcel as well.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what's remaining on their parcel, but whatever their total parcel acreage is minus the 4.7.
So I'm a historian,
it
not a
looks like.
mathematician. I didn't do good at math. So I'm hearing, Julie, people say 18.5 in the 13.5.
13.5 would be what's remaining.
Okay.
I'm trusting Corinne's math.
Commissioner Walton, Commissioner Johnson, anything else?
No, not really. I think we just need a motion at this point. So I'll go
All right.
ahead with the motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we table the rezone request until the CH zone and its uses can be better defined, and development process for I want to get this right, development plan and agreement overlay be better defined by the code update committee.
Okay.
I'll second.
Julie beat you. Julie seconded the motion.
Just that we define the development process for the plan and agreement overlay.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Walton?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Losi? That is an aye, and I am an aye as well. So the item is tabled. Okay, moving on. Item number 6. Final plats, site and improvement plans for the lofts at Deer Run located at approximately 7870 South, 2700 East by developer Joseph Cook of Deer Run Development LLC. Sherry,
Yeah.
tell us about this one.
So I'm gonna actually read from an email that I sent out to the Planning Commission and City Council yesterday, because it goes a little more into depth about the history of the project and where it stands right now. What several of the planning commissioners asked me to put into context a little bit deeper the request that's before them relative to the lofts at Deer Run. So the action before the planning commission, obviously this is what's on the agenda, is an administrative action. So the commission's being asked to either recommend approval or recommend denial of the final site plan, plats and improvement plan. So prior to, that's the issue to consider tonight. The prior actions in December of 2020, the Planning Commission approved the architectural and landscaping plans as part of the approval of the preliminary plans. Both myself and the city attorney and city manager dug into this because I came in halfway through the project. So I needed to do it for my own benefit to make sure I had a good understanding in previous commission actions. And we've gone over the previous reviews by the previous city planner. I've gone over the reviews by Brandon as the city engineer that were referenced in the motion. Neither of them required the applicant to change the architectural or landscaping plans. And so the approval of those fell under the umbrella of the preliminary site plan and improvements. So as far as what's before the commission tonight, there were some minor things that needed to be handled as part of the final plan submittal. They needed to submit an irrigation plan, which they did, and that was reviewed by the engineer. They needed to clarify where the mechanical equipment was going to be located, and that was clarified. The final plat is compliant with all of the engineering and planning standards. The improvement plans, the final improvement plans have been reviewed and accepted by the city engineers, meeting city standards where, with the applicable standards. The city has received the necessary letters from Weber Basin Water Conservancy, Davis and Weber Canal Company, and South Weber Water Improvement District. Like I said, the architectural plans were reviewed and approved as part of preliminary approval. The development agreement, which was not included in this, was the amended development agreement was also approved by the Planning Commission preliminary. And so all of these things together, both the things that were approved are preliminary and the edits and changes that needed done that have been presented to the commission in this meeting, all of that will go with a recommendation to the city council. Because this is just application of code, this is an administrative action because there's no rezone involved or anything like that. And so based on the review of the final submittals by myself as the city planner and by Brandon, the city engineer, the final plat and plans for this project are compliant with the requirements that would be necessary for the commission to recommend it to the city council.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. Mr. Cook, is there anything you would like to add?
I know there were some comments, and we're more than willing to work with the neighbors in any way they need to with regard to fencing or whatever issues there are. We'll definitely be good neighbors. And so, but I think she stated it perfectly, and I appreciate everyone's time and their effort. It's been a long haul here, but I really do appreciate your time on this. And so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from commission?
This originally was brought to us with a commercial overlay zoning. And it's gone through so many changes that the commercial aspect no longer exists. I see that on the plan, it talks about a common area, not a commercial area. And it also, what it does talk about commercial, it says there is going to be 3,794 cubic feet of commercial. Why is it cubic feet, not square feet?
That would be a good question. My name is Fred Cox. I'm an architect. That would be a great question for our civil engineer that does the plats. I can tell you that there is approximately about 4,000 square feet facing the road. The building that's closest to the road still has some commercial facing the road because that was the whole point of the
There's
overlay.
nothing on the plans that talk about commercial. The current plan has nothing addressing commercial.
I've got those
It
plats.
says common property. It says, refers to it as the common area. It's not commercial. It says it's common area. Define what common area is versus commercial. So
What page are you looking at, Wes?
Brandon,
what's on their plans?
it's the parking.
If you
Looking
look
at-
on sheet 2 of 4,
In the
Parcel-
PDF, what page in the PDF set?
I didn't print it out as
Page
individual
33,
pages.
page 33 of the PDF. By my view of the map, this looks to be the parking area that's designated as common, and I believe it's because this will be developed as a planned unit development or condominium type development that will have CCNRs that will run with the land, and the CCNRs will designate the portions of the property that are privately owned or can be privately sold, and the portions of the property that are commonly owned and can't be sold in that same way. And the parking is part of that commonly owned
Yeah.
area. And that's why it's designated common area.
But there's no commercial.
Parcel A has the commercial.
The commercial is in the buildings that are on each of the on the parcels.
Yeah, it's building A that has the one next to the street. The others, you're right, do not have any
Yeah,
commercial.
the others do not and have commercial, but building A, going through all the plans that you've presented, I can't find anything with reference to commercial on any of it.
There is on, let's see, page 48 of the PDF set. It is C400 of the Antelis plans. Building A calls out 3,794 cubic feet of commercial.
Of cubic feet of commercial?
Yes. That's just a typo.
And then Commissioner Johnson, to the extent it helps answer your question about common area, when you look at the other views of the properties, you'll see that the roof is a common area, the entryways are common area, the stair
All
corridors
common areas.
and
yes,
hallways
I
are all
understand.
common area.
But where they had commercial in the past is now common area. If you go back to the plans from back in August of 2020, that showed a significant amount of commercial in building A.
So if I'm remembering correctly, they did a lot of changes based on our discussions about that. So a lot of that stuff was reconfigured. I mean, you even moved the buildings around, if I
Like they
remember
did.
correctly.
Right.
So
The buildings were adjusted based on comments here and also city council. The amount of commercial was reduced when city council basically said that we couldn't do shared parking. So we reduced the amount of commercial. So the building closest to the road still has commercial on the main floor facing the road.
If I'm understanding it correctly, if you go to the plat of that would be sheet 35 of the PDF set, is the first floor and second floor of parcel A, which is building A. If you look at the first floor, all three units, so A101, 102, and A103 are all commercial units. And then on the second floor, A202, 204, 206, and 208 are all commercial. Am I right?
These are
These, I believe, are residential. This is your entry in the parking lot.
Right, I thought the entry level on the back side were commercial and then the entry level on the front side were commercial. Is that
It doesn't show it.
just the front? Okay.
So Wes, Julie has a comment. Do you mind if I read that? I think.
Go ahead.
So Julie says, I would have appreciated seeing a full final plan for this development, especially given all of the changes from a plan that started with tons of commercial to a drawing on a napkin at one point in time to what was presented for preliminary back in December of 2020, I believe, to where we are now. And I don't think we received that. What would it take to get a full and complete final plat, site and improvement plans for this development, so that our citizens can see exactly what this development will look like and what we will be getting as what we will be getting as a city. So Sherry, staff, I'm going to look to you to, there's a lot in there.
May I comment and maybe they can clarify?
Please.
The drawings that we submitted, I'm looking at a floor plan from October, which hasn't changed. They may have changed which building is B or C, but that hasn't changed. The elevations from October haven't changed. And those items were part of the preliminary review and approval. What you're reviewing now are the plats and the civil drawings, which staff went through and had a lot of technical comments that were revised, but the drawings that you reviewed in December or whenever it was, we haven't changed those. I can certainly leave them, and they were in your previous packet, as Paul had mentioned earlier. That's something that you have reviewed and approved based on those, and we're not proposing to change that. It's the plats are really technical, and they've got a lot of items in them, and staff has gone through that and the civil package. Those are what has changed over the last few months, but these other drawings haven't. They're still here.
Sherry, please.
I can certainly provide those because the architectural plans and things like that were already approved. I want to be a little bit careful with how I say this. They were not put in the packet for this meeting, not because of anything that was trying to be hidden or anything like that, but because they were already approved and not subject to review and amendment. I wanted it to be clear what the commission was going to look at tonight. However, based on the commission's action, there will be a full and complete set of that, of everything that's been approved. It'll all be put together in one thing when it goes forward to the city council.
Okay.
But like I said, because there were things that were already approved and not part of the deliberations tonight, they were not included in the packet.
Okay. Julie, do those answers help with your comment and your most recent question that you just asked? Yes. Okay.
So yeah, I think, given the background that you've given us, Sherry, and everything else that has been in the staff documents, I mean, the only real action for us here is to say, does it meet the intent of the preliminary approval? And so to that end, I'm just curious, in the memo that you gave us, you didn't outright state that, but that's what I'm really looking for. Is everything that was approved in preliminary seem to be the exact same that was given at final?
Yeah, when something is approved at preliminary, it doesn't get resubmitted with the final. It's only those things that are outstanding from preliminary.
No, and I get that, and I think that's
okay.
what I'm asking is are you? Let me quote your
Sure.
memo. Sorry.
I like hearing myself quoted. I'm just kidding.
I got too many things open. I apologize. Let me see if I can quickly
You're okay.
find this. All right. You stated as, so staff analysis. You state that this draft ordinance complies in all significant respects to the general plan and city priorities. And I'm looking for that statement that says that it complies with the preliminary as well, because that's really what we're deciding on, right?
Yeah, it does.
So, okay, so you're saying that what was approved at preliminary matches what's at final?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I think Brandon also states that from an engineering perspective
Mhm.
that it matches.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, with that said, I think that's at least how I'm interpreting it, is that's really what the action is in front of us.
Mhm.
With that, I want to express a little bit of frustration. This feels like it's been a little bit of a hot mess, because I feel like when we met in December, there were certain elements to the architectural plan and some of the other items that maybe weren't captured as part of somebody's memorandum or even maybe minutes that maybe should have. But that's something that certainly I won't bring up here as part of their approval, but I would really like to better define
Mhm.
what does it mean to give preliminary approval.
Right. You can do that.
And I'm having a tough time finding some of what you told us in our code, like when we give preliminary approval, the architectural plan is also approved, or site plan is also approved. And I think that's a little bit of a dangerous assumption, only because I felt like maybe they hadn't been fully approved. So the recommendation that I would make would be that when, I hate to put more on the code update committee,
It's okay.
providing more
Well,
work.
you're on that
I know,
committee, so you're giving yourself more work.
I'd like to pawn it off on somebody else if I could. But I mean, we really need to look at, we don't even have a definition for preliminary plan and what that
Right.
entails. So
Right.
that's my frustration, but I also don't want to muddy the waters, don't want to make sausage. The decision before us, my estimation is that does this final plan and plat match the preliminary? And to that end, I think for your recommendation, for my review of everything else, it does.
So I'd agree with Commissioner Walton. This has been crazy. This project, I think we appreciate your patience with us, and we know you have been patient, sorry, I'm tired. It's been a long day. We've been patient with you. I think you've been patient with us. We appreciate that. And I think we've got the best we can do. And we appreciate your willingness. I mean, you moved buildings around, you completely rechanged. And as you well know, there are still many in the community who do not like this project. But I look forward to the good people who will move in to those places and live here. I think we need to just move on, learn our lessons, and just welcome the people who will live here and the businesses that will come in the 3,000 square cubed foot or whatever. But yeah, I don't have anything else. Anything else from the commission or Julie? Anything from you? Nay. Oh, she's okay. So I would look for a motion then.
So I can make a motion that we recommend approval of final plats and site and improvement plans for the lofts at Deer Run located approximately 7870 South, 2700 East by developer Joseph Cook at Deer Run Development LLC.
I'll second that. So we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Walton.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
No.
Commissioner Losi. Okay. She's a nay, and I am an aye.
So
So the motion fails.
Jamie?
No, that's correct. So the motion fails, and this would move forward to the city council without a recommendation of approval from the planning commission. This is one of those situations where it can feel a little odd as a planning commissioner, because the perception is that the planning commission is a gatekeeper of sorts to things that rise to the city council. And that's true on some topics where recommendations might initiate with the planning commission before they would move forward to the city council. And then the council would be bound to take them up. In this case, it's an application from a landowner for an approval under code provision that existed at the time the application was made. And so it now has come to the planning commission, and it would go to the city council with without a recommendation one way or the other from the planning commission. And then the council can take it up on the merits.
Okay.
I know we have yet to have a conversation about our bylaws and how we want to communicate with the council in our decisions, but I definitely, without those bylaws in place, I definitely would like to hear why the no votes, and I think that should be communicated to the city council as well. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No,
Chair.
I agree with that. Yeah. So Commissioner Johnson.
Way back when we began discussing between the city council staff and the planning commission what a commercial overlay zone consisted of, we looked at various aspects of it, and we basically said a 50-50 split in square foot, or 75-25 square footage split between residential and commercial. And it has gone downhill ever since then. The city council and the planning commission, and I requested that we establish a firm percentage of residential and commercial, and it was never taken up. And we have seen this come in with a large 2 floors of commercial with a daycare center originally. And then that got whittled down a little bit, then got whittled down some more. And now we're down to less than 4,000 square feet of commercial, where originally we had probably close to, if I remember, 27,000 square feet was originally brought to us. And now we're down to less than 4,000 square feet. So I think, in my opinion on this is that it's been whittled away too much. And it needs to be readdressed through the city council. And the city council, I believe in the past, has sent this back to us as the planning commission to review again. And I'm gonna throw it back at the city council, and it's your decision, not ours.
I think Julie is busily typing. So we'll give her a minute here to. So while she's doing that, I do think we probably ought to have someone at the next city council meeting where this is going. And I think in the bylaws right now, it's the assistant chair.
Well, for now.
For now.
I'm happy to.
I'd be happy to join you as well.
Okay.
We'll plan on doing it. Okay. So I'll read this from Julie. I feel like there is still so much that isn't understood, and what this project will ultimately look like is missing. My request is simple. I want to see a final plat, site and improvement plan so that our citizens will know exactly what they are getting and what we as a commission is recommending for approval. I don't think we have that right now. So noted. Okay.
Okay.
Moving on. So
can I
public,
ask a real quick question?
oh, yes,
Can I, whatever the recommendation is, can I get that in writing? So we know exactly what,
well,
with the-
it'll be in the minutes.
okay. And then are we proceeding
Well,
to city
it'll go to
council?
the city council with regardless.
Okay,
It just won't have a favorable recommendation from the plan.
yeah.
So,
Unfavorable.
yeah, and it's because it was a 2-2 tie and all these comments and things will be in the minutes. So, yeah.
Yeah, do you know when that's gonna be?
The, yeah, it'll probably be the 25th of May.
All right.
We'll get with the city recorder and make sure, and they'll get in a hold of you.
And so just to clarify, the whole package that we submitted several weeks ago, many weeks ago, was not submitted to the planning commission, just the things that had to be reviewed on this final,
Right.
is that correct?
But everything that they approved in December,
Was
yeah,
already,
it'll all go in one packet to the council.
gotcha. All right, sounds good, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Item number 7, public hearing and action on updates to the following ordinances. Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 10A, Land Use Matrix. Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 10, Definitions. Title 10, Chapter 5, Zoning Districts. Sherry, would you like to tell us about this?
Sure. There are a couple components to this. Several months ago, hold on, I want to pull up. I'm trying to pull up the background memo. Oh, here we go. I'll read from the background memo. After the general plan was adopted late last year, the South Weber Code Committee was tasked with reviewing Title 10, which is the entire zoning code. And so they set some priorities and looked through different things. But what they decided they wanted to start with, because they knew that things were moving on certain properties, they wanted to start with land uses in each zone. This is not the only change that will be made to each zone. I want to make that really clear. But rather than doing one zone at a time, it's actually easier if you say, okay, we're going to look at the land uses in all the zones. We're going to look at the setbacks in all the zones. We're going to look at the height things in all the zone and take one topic across each zone and do it that way. You get a better product in the end. So that's kind of the process that's gone through. And it's been worked on, I believe we figured out since August of last year is when they started on it. So there's different documents that are included in this. The first set of documents is the land use matrix. And this is something that I really pushed for when I came on board with the city, because it's easier for property owners, it's easier for staff to deal with land uses when you've got them all in one place and you have one list of land uses and then you have zones all the way across the top. It's easier to compare those things. And so that's one of the things that the code committee has done, is they've pulled it all into one place. And that's what the matrix is. It pulls the uses out of each individual zone and puts them all on one table. So there's a couple things that I want to address with looking at the land use matrix. Things are either classified as permitted or conditional, or they're not given a designation. Permitted uses are those uses that are generally understood to have impacts that are suitable for the zone where they're located and don't necessarily need a higher level of review, unless there's like a site plan, which is required with commercial or business license or something like that. Conditional uses are those uses that may have impacts the city needs to examine a little more closely, like traffic patterns, dust, things like that. It needs to be understood that conditional uses are permitted. There's just an extra level of standard they have to meet. And if they can meet those conditions that are in place to mitigate those detrimental impacts, then they are permitted. It's actually, the city can only deny a conditional use if the impacts can't be reasonably mitigated. If a use on the matrix does not have a permitted or conditional designation, then it's not allowed in the zone. On top of that, if there are uses that are not on the land use matrix, they're not allowed in any zone. And so there's also, that's with the matrix. As far as the definitions go, we decided similarly to bring all of the definitions into one place. And we went through, the code committee went through and clarified definitions, corrected, took some of the regulatory language out of the definitions so that all the definitions do is define it, and then the regulation is in the code application. So those are, as far as the definitions go, there are some uses that are defined, but then that are not applied anywhere in the matrix. One example that I can think of is there is a definition of a truck stop, but you won't see a truck stop on the land use matrix. And the rationale behind doing that and some other similar uses is so that someone can't come in and do a gas station and claim that something's a gas station, but or goes by any other name is a truck stop. So some uses you define to distinguish it from something else so that A cannot be done because you defined it. They can't use B to try and say this is what it is. So we did that to close some of the loopholes. There are certain uses that are not particularly palatable to the general public, but which are statutorily required. Of particular notice that I've been asked about is the reference to cannabis and sexually oriented businesses. Those are not there because staff or the code committee or anybody wants them there particularly. They're there because they're statutorily required. And so we have to find a designation for them in the city. So that's why some of those things are in there because they have unique legal requirements or they're statutorily required.
Can I put a little finer point on that?
Yeah.
I just want to put a little bit of a finer point on this, and it may not be a statute that all of us like or agree with, but it's state law that if you don't establish a zone or a zoning district within the city where those uses may be permitted, that you are prohibited from excluding those uses from your city. And so it's a little bit, it feels odd to do it that way. But if you don't make a zoning designation for it, then you cannot keep it out of the areas where you'd like to keep it out. And so this is a little bit of a prophylactic measure to make sure that the city can prevent the uses it wishes to prevent in the areas it wishes to prevent them.
Thank you.
And so for those designations, they've been put outside of residential zones for reasons that I think are fairly obvious. So I think that's basically, unless you guys have specific questions for me, that's really all I have by way of introduction to what it is you're looking at.
Okay. So I know Julie has a comment, but let's open the public hearing first on that. And so I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the public hearing is open. Our crowd has dwindled. Does anyone have any comments about this?
Read what? Sorry.
I looked in the packet, but I didn't see where the matrix they're not in the planning commission.
It's all in there.
It begins on page 99 and it
Way back there.
looks like a spreadsheet format.
It's an individual.
Under the public hearing materials, you click on that one, it's all.
It's 7A.
A lot of reading. A lot of reading. Okay.
Trying to match the city council on packet size.
That's right. Match, exceed.
Okay, so I don't see anybody who would like to make a comment on this. So I will move to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye, and Julie says aye. So just a point of clarification for Julie regarding the sexually oriented businesses and the cannabis. She asked, so we have a zone, we have to zone it in order to prevent it.
That's correct. You have to establish some zone within the city where it is permitted, even if that zone is small. Otherwise, you cannot prohibit it anywhere in the city.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Julie? Okay.
And just by way of
Oh,
note,
please.
those statutory required land uses are designated with an asterisk, a double asterisk? Can't recall.
Well, there's two different designations on there. There's one that has like group homes and things like
Yeah.
that have a unique set of requirements. And then there are some uses that are statutorily required.
Okay, but sorry, I just didn't look at the key yet, but if
Yeah,
it's,
that's accurate. The single asterisk means subject to unique legal requirements. And in those circumstances, there are some definitions or uses where we have to follow the definitions or are limited in how we can define them by legal requirements. And then there are double asterisks, which are these types of uses we just described, that if you don't allow for them somewhere, then you cannot prohibit them anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. So the work that the code committee has done has been amazing. I mean, this has been a Herculean task, which they have taken on, and I think they've done an amazing job and are to be commended. So Commissioner Walton and Sherry and Jamie and everybody else who has been on that committee, well done. I've looked through it all. I don't have any comments. It is well done. I looked to the professionals who have worked on this, and we had several members of the council and Commissioner Walton from the commission. I just think it's well done. I think we've incorporated a lot of the lessons that we've learned over the last few years. I'm sure this isn't perfect, but things are always changing. Things are always going to be in motion. But I think for the point that South Weber is at right now, I think this is excellent. So with that, I would open it up to comments or questions from the rest of the commission.
Commissioner Johnson, while we're working on that, in answer to your question, there are definitions in the uses and in our definitions here that differ a little bit from commonly. And so I know when we think commonly of agricultural, we think of both the raising of plants and crops and the animals and things like that that go with. For these definitions, we had to make a separation between uses that involve animals and uses that involve only horticulture and the plants. And so what you'll see are two definitions. One is agricultural, and agriculture we define as involving plants and growing plants. And then the other definition you'll see is farming, which is a farm industry that includes keeping and raising of animals or fowl for other than domestic uses.
The basis, what we started with, and then looking at the future uses is what I'm looking at for the dairy.
Yeah, and I believe previously dairy was a permitted use.
Yeah, it was.
And an undefined term that was used in the city code. As with the rewrite, any use designated as a farming use might include a dairy.
Okay. Further down on farm stand, we've got that as permitted uses in agricultural and residential areas. But we don't have it under the commercial highway. And in the past, we've had an individual with a farm stand up by Maverick. It's basically whatever excess vegetables, fruits you have, you take them up there and put them on the farm stand, and people come by and take as they need. I think that the farm stand ought to be included in the commercial highway area there.
So farmer's market is, I think we drew a distinction in those definitions.
Right.
So I think farm stand was a little bit smaller scale.
Yeah, farm stand, is that going to require a permit from the city?
I'm not sure if we went that far into that, but we're just working on definitions. I'll take the note.
Okay.
But yeah, I would assume it would.
Yeah, but we've got that farm stands permitted in agricultural and in all of the residential areas.
Yeah, and the distinction between farm stand and a farmer's market is a farmer's market can sell things that were not grown on site.
The
and
city,
a farm
city
stand is
proposes a
restricted.
farmer's market every year down at the Canyon Meadows. The city promotes a farmer's market down at Canyon Meadows every year. So we need to pull that into the matrix somehow.
It's included in the matrix. You'll see two definitions. One definition is farmer's market. The other definition is farm stand.
The farmer's market is not listed other than its conditional use for commercial and commercial highway. But the
Oh, I
city,
see. So your suggestion is to include farmer's market in other zones within
some
the
other
city.
zone, because the city promotes the farmer's market down at Canyon Meadows.
That's
So-
something that you could do by way of amendment. The commission could vote on it.
And there was a difference between temporary versus permanent, or a
Right.
little bit more
Okay.
permanent use.
Further down on recreational vehicle sales and rentals, in the definitions, it specifically excludes off-highway vehicles. And yet we have a commercial recreation area identified, basically just below Hill Air Force Base as an area where a commercial recreation can be put in. But there's, under the recreational vehicles, we specifically, let me find it. For the purpose of this title, this definition does not include motorcycles, off-road, or other similar vehicles. And yet we're promoting a recreational vehicle zone. So I think we ought to take a look at possibly allowing the sale of off-highway vehicles, because there's been a big push locally to try and get somebody in here to sell off-highway vehicles versus large recreational fifth wheels and stuff like that. I think we ought to include the off-highway vehicles in that, in the definition, say it does include.
So Wes, maybe you guys have better clarity on that than I do. I just want to make sure I'm clear on it. You're saying that the vehicle and equipment sale and rental use?
No. Recreational vehicle sales and rentals.
So that was brought under the umbrella of vehicle and equipment sales and rental. The definition of that includes automobiles, trucks, motorcycles, recreational vehicles, or boats. So it was brought under the umbrella of vehicle and equipment sales.
But we have an area identified as commercial recreation. And commercial recreation is that entire hillside up there where we've talked about possibility of having somebody that sells ATVs and stuff up in that area. And
Okay,
now we're saying we're going to exclude it from commercial recreation.
Yeah, so I think that selling them and using them are two different things is what I'm hearing.
So would your suggestion be that vehicle sales is allowed in commercial recreation?
Yes, off-highway vehicle sales be allowed in commercial recreation.
That's the note that I'll take.
What?
That's the note that I'm going to take to the code committee, that recommendation that Commissioner Johnson's provided.
Okay.
Tiny homes, we're basically saying we're not going to address tiny homes whatsoever.
Did we have a discussion about that, Commissioner Walton? I don't remember.
We did. So tiny homes are not part of the current land use matrix. They would fall under.
It'd fall under recreational vehicle, I believe.
That's right.
They're within that same definition. So any zone where recreational vehicles are permitted, tiny homes would be permitted. And of course, the converse is also true.
Okay.
So Commissioner Losi just makes a comment here. Just she had some difficulty accessing the documents from the link sent by staff, had to go to the city website to planning commission meeting packets in order to get full files to download. Might be an issue with the oversize of the documents. Error message was couldn't preview file. There, I can, yeah, that, so.
You have to download it. Anything that's too big to preview.
You have to download it.
You have to.
Yeah,
download
I
it.
noticed that as well, so. Anything else, Commissioner Johnson?
On the zoning, the boundary descriptions, couple of things there. We don't address RP in that, patio homes. There's nothing in the boundary determinations.
At this time, there's not any changes that are going on with boundary determinations or with any zone area or with any map or anything like that. We're just looking at the land uses and the definitions.
Right.
Other things will likely come back at some point, but right now the boundaries aren't part of the amendments.
A suggestion that if we're going to reprint this, can we break it so it fits on 2 pages versus a page and a half?
Which one?
You've got, when you print it out,
Yeah, it was done like that to keep all of the zones on one page.
okay.
But if there's a format that makes it easier to read, that's fine.
Well, I think it was meant for an 11 by 17 piece of
Sorry,
paper.
what?
I think it was meant for a larger piece of paper.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So if you could break it, it can be broken, just some simple editing can do a page split and put it on 2 8.5 by 11 sheets.
Okay. We can do that.
Other than that, I think you guys done a real good job.
Okay.
But there's nothing about fishing.
Commissioner Walton.
If it's okay with you, I'd like to try to focus in on one area tonight and get maybe some targeted comments, and that would be our commercial highway zone, given the conversation that we had tonight. We'd like to get comments from the commission that could go back to the code committee on if we're comfortable with all the proposed uses in commercial highway. So without doing a line by line review, I just want to make sure that you guys don't see anything glaring there that maybe you might be uncomfortable with or want to consider further.
I think one of the things that we've done here is the removing the storage units. That was taken out of that, and that was a big issue with the Stevens property in the past, was the
Yeah.
storage units, and we removed that from commercial highway. I think that's a good idea there.
Yeah, so there's nothing glaring that I have, Commissioner Walton. Julie does ask, she says, well, I know I brought up tiny homes before and they don't have a VIN like a recreational vehicle does. What came about that clarification?
So I think it was based upon a definition that we had found from maybe the state on tiny homes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the fact that they may not have a VIN like a recreational vehicle does, they do tend to be able to be moved. They can be, they usually have some kind of trailer frame. They may not have axles, but they can be easily picked up and relocated. And so without creating its own definition for it, I think we thought it would be best suited under recreational vehicles.
I believe that's correct.
But if that's something that again, if we want to take back and look again, that's certainly, that's the kind of feedback I think the committee would like to have from the commission.
Mm. And the thing too that I hope the commission understands is that the code committee's work is excellent and it's necessary and things like that. But I hope you understand as commissioners that if there are changes that you want to see as a commission, independent of what the code committee has done, it is fully within your prerogative to make those changes. You don't have, it's not required. And I don't want this to come across as me undermining the code committee at all, because I'm not. But because you're an appointed body, it's well within your authority to make changes and additions independent of what the code committee suggests. So I hope you understand that you're not completely bound just to sign off on what they did.
Well, I'm ready to sign off. I think they've done a really good job, and I mean, we could go on and on and on forever, but I think time is of the essence of this. And again, kudos to the code committee. They've done a tremendous amount of heavy lifting. So
Julie,
yes, I was just getting ready to read. So but given the lack of public support for a hotel in the CH zone, can we make it a conditional use versus a permitted use, if not removing it altogether? So my opinion, I'm okay moving it to permitted use. I don't think I'm comfortable getting rid of it altogether, because I think it could be a valuable asset to the community if it's in the right place. But that's my opinion. Any other comment, any other thoughts from two of you?
right now it is proposed as conditional.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, just to clarify that.
Okay, thank you. It's late.
Right now, it actually, in the proposed land use matrix, hotel is conditional in one zone, and then it's
Okay.
not permitted anywhere else in the commercial highway zone.
Thanks, Sherry. Appreciate that. Any other thoughts or comments?
I just know we're probably forgetting something that Wayne really wanted us to hammer home. So that's what's in the back of my head, that I'm going to be told I'm fired from the
Well.
code committee because I did bring up something, but I think we've covered it all. I can't think of what.
Yeah. To answer her follow-up question, Commissioner Losi, it's actually the other way around. Conditional gives you a higher level than permitted. I mean, with permitted, they still have to do a site, they would still have to do a site plan and things like that. But conditional, there's a little bit higher standard that they have to meet.
Okay, so she's on board with that. Anything else, Commissioner Johnson?
I think that's about all I had.
So are we looking for a motion to approve recommendation? What
Well,
are we being asked to?
There are a couple different things. There are several different things that can happen. I know that because of the scale of this, a couple commissioners had talked about doing another meeting in May where this is the only thing on the agenda, this in the bylaws, because then you can go through in a little bit greater detail, and like commissioners can have a couple weeks to like, I guess, fine tune the wording of amendments they'd like to see and present those to the commission to vote on. So that's a possibility, because in order to change things on it, I mean, commissioners give input and discussions and things they'd like to see, but in order to make changes, the commission as a whole needs to vote on those changes. And so you can vote on it right now. I think there's been a few items that people have suggested that they'd like to see. If commissioners feel ready to make a motion to make those amendments, they can do that, and then you can vote on that. You can decide to wait until your meeting in June, and have this on the agenda with whatever else will come in.
Okay.
All those options are available to you.
So I'll just express my opinion. I think we're at a point, I'm comfortable voting on it, but if other people have some amendments that we could add tonight, I'm okay with that. I don't see the need for another meeting. Editing by committee never works. So we could go through this with a fine-tooth comb, and I don't want to do that. I think the code committee has done an excellent job. They're to be commended, and I'm ready to move on, but I'm just one of 5 and 4 here tonight. So appreciate others' thoughts on what you'd like to do.
I would like to move forward, but we made recommendations, and unless those recommendations are implemented by the code committee, how can we vote on it?
So that's what Sherry was saying. It's our prerogative. We can say we're good with it as is, and then we can come back on another meeting and say, you know what, we really liked, farm stand being better defined in this zone.
Right.
We can go ahead and move forward with that. It's not so much we're looking for the committee's permission to implement. We're just providing comments back to them, right? So it's certainly up to us at a later date. If we feel like we wanted to make a change, we can. But the action in front of us now is just recommending approval or not recommending approval of the document.
If the changes are simple, then you could make a motion with text amendments, and then we can make those amendments and carry it forward. If they're more complicated changes where you'd like to see the actual text then before approving it, then that may be a situation where you want to continue it for a future meeting and then work out those text revisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Walton, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm just quickly reviewing the comments from Commissioner Davis. Sent her email, just making sure we have everything captured there. I don't see anything that we need to discuss here. But yeah, I mean, I'm certainly ready to move this on to the next level. But I guess my question is, on our agenda, it talks about action. Our action is to recommend approval to the city council, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Correct.
All right.
Quick question. In the boundary determination zoning districts, we have Article K, professional office zone. PO, but we don't have that on the matrix.
It's probably folded into another definition or use.
At a future date, because it's not on projected land use maps, at a future date, it's likely that those, because there's a couple zones that are that way, it's likely those will be repealed.
Commissioner Losi, what are your thoughts on taking action on this? She's good with moving it to city council.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I'll look for a motion. Taylor, you worked on
Make a
this. Do
motion.
you
I
wanna
just
make-
want to make sure you're,
I think we got it pretty well covered. You know, there may be something comes up in the future. We may have to go back and amend it.
Mhm.
But as it is right now, this is excellent. This is real good.
Thank you.
It's better than one I made.
Let's see. Commissioner Losi says, make a motion with recommendation brought of this evening. I'm not sure what that means.
Commissioner Losi, is your motion to recommend it to the city council as presented this evening?
I believe Commissioner Losi is making a,
The recommendation brought up as presented, including tonight's discussion of this evening.
so I think, would that be to forward a conversation to prioritize the commercial highway land uses? Or, I'm sorry, just, okay. So just as is. Okay.
So how about we let Elder, sorry, that's work. Commissioner Walton make the recommendation and then we can vote on that. Just, we want to make sure we get everything clear.
All right. Not a lot of pressure at all. Maybe. Concise statement here. So I'll make a motion that we recommend for approval on updates to the following ordinances to the city council. Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 10-A, Land Use Matrix. Title 10, Chapter 1, Section 10, Definitions. And Title 10, Chapter 5, Zoning Districts.
I'll second that. And before I call for a roll call vote, Commissioner Losi just said, I want to make sure Wes's points were brought up and included. I think Commissioner Johnson is
he's got
good
those
with
down.
it. So we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Losi. Aye. Commissioner Walton.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So well done, everybody. That's a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of work, and glad to see it move on. So our next item is Planning Commission bylaws. I recommend we kick those down the road a little bit to our next meeting, unless anybody has any heartburn over that.
This time I presented you guys with a clean copy. If you look over them again and you have additional comments or feel like past comments weren't addressed, just email them to me and I'll put any new or previously unaddressed back in.
And just to clarify too, are we going to try to have a second meeting in May to go over those, or?
I was thinking of the second meeting more for the code. I thought we would need it for that. I think we're far enough on the bylaws that, you know, if we have comments, we can send them to Sherry, get them included, and then discuss it just at our next normally planned meeting.
Okay. And then just a follow-on question that I'm curious to know if we have any indication of how packed an agenda we might have for our June meeting. Nothing yet.
Right now, it's pretty quiet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Good with that.
We don't need to formally make a motion to kick those down the road, do we? Or, okay, thanks, Jamie. All right, Planning Commission comments. Commissioner Losi, be typing them if you have any comments. Commissioner Walton?
I just wanted to bring up something that I was hoping to touch base with David Larson today, but members of the Planning Commission should be signed up for a subscription service to American Planning Association. I'm not sure if you're seeing those in your
Yep.
emails.
I am.
So I just wanted to make you aware of them if you hadn't seen them yet.
Okay.
So, good resources for all kinds of articles and recommendations, continuing education opportunities as well.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Haven't had a Parks meeting lately, so nothing happening there.
Okay, Commissioner Losi, I think she's typing. Apologize for texting my thoughts and appreciate everyone's patience. Thank you to the code committee. You guys rock. So, well, thank you for joining us virtually. We apologize for the technical difficulties, but it was good to have you join us. So I don't have any comments. Just again, appreciate everybody. And that was a lot to go through this week and appreciate it. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.